for the most part, I know there are a few people doing it from odd different backgrounds, but most of you are now in the final year of a geography-related degree at Keele. More than that, you're in the final semester, many of you, of your geography-related degree at Keele. And that's kind of the whole point of this module. It's an exit module where you get a chance to push your geography right to the limit and beyond the limit. How far can you push geography before it disintegrates and becomes something else? And I would argue that there is no limit. You can push it as far as you like. But that's what you have the opportunity to do in this module. I always argue that the whole point of going to university is to improve your view of the world, to see the world more clearly, to see it better, to enjoy the world more. And the whole point of geography is to enhance your appreciation of the world around you. So geography is a great thing to do at university because those two aims fit together very well. So most of you have been doing several years of that, developing your view of the world, learning to appreciate the world around you better than you would have done if you hadn't come to university. And this module, I call it extreme geography. It's where we push that right to the limit. And a few years ago, when I was first putting together this module, I was writing to all sorts of people for advice and information about things that I wanted to include in it. And I got a nice letter from I can't remember what university she was at now, somewhere in the UK, but she was a lecturer in German literature who I'd contacted about something that will become apparent later in the course. But she wrote back saying, gosh, we don't do anything like this at wherever it was that she worked. She said, your students are very lucky to have a module like this. But then I thought about it and thought, well, not only are the students lucky, we're all lucky that we could have a module like this at Keele. And it's one of the good things about the Keele system is that we have the flexibility to have a module like this. That's a good thing because it means we can do something weird. But it's a bad thing because weird can be challenging if you're not open to it. So having an open mind is a really important thing for this module. So let's launch in. We're going to it's like a journey. We're going to the far limits of geography, exploring, and we'll see what we find out there, see if we can cope. Now, landscape, which is at the heart of this module, obviously, is something which inspires all sorts of different people. It inspires geographers. It inspires artists, poets. Given that we're coming at it as geographers from a geography point of view, one starting point for this is to say, well, if we want to understand more clearly how and why landscape can inspire geographers, well, maybe if we see that inspiration of landscape to geography in the context of how landscape inspires other people, we'll get a better impression of what's happening in the geography. So if we look at how landscape inspires art, poetry, etc., and if we also try to look sideways a bit between art and geography and poetry, if there are any links there, well then we'll just see the core geography bit. We'll see it better if we see it in context. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do in this module, see stuff in context. And my first big starting point for this is this little bit of poetry from a chap called T.S. Eliot. So an example of the test, if you've never heard of T.S. Eliot before, well, he may come up in the test, so just go and look him up and make sure you know who he is, remember who he is. T.S. Eliot was a poet from the early part of the 20th century, and he wrote a poem called Little Gidding, in which he said, and this is really important for geography, for me, this is geography, "We shall not cease from exploration," he said, so we're always exploring. And the end of all our exploration, when we're done, when we're finished, we'll get back where we started, we'll arrive back where we started from, and we'll know the place for the first time. The whole point of exploration isn't just to discover new things out there, it's to understand better your starting point. Now, as an explorer thinking about geography, discovering America helps you to put England in context, but as a person, learning about other things helps you to put yourself in context. Learning about other people helps you to see yourself more clearly. So that's our starting point. We're exploring. That's what geography is all about. And we're going to do some exploring in this module. That's the aim of this module is for you to explore stuff. So look at that from another angle. This is something else. This is Rudyard Kipling, who was born not far from here. And he wrote a poem in which he said, "What should they know of England who only England know?" This was actually an exam question that I had in my first year at Oxford. That was it. That, discuss. What should you know of England? Only England know. And the point is, I like my pen for this. Is that a big pen or a small pen? Tell me something about that pen. Give me a size for it. Big or small?
It's all relative.
Exactly. Whether you think of this as being a big pen or a small pen depends on what I get out of the box next. Oh, that was the big one. That was Well, is that normal or is that small? I don't know, we need some more. You can't say much about anything unless you've got something to compare it with. So what can you say about England if England's the only place you've ever been? If you haven't travelled, if you haven't explored, you're not going to have that comparison to make those relative statements. So T.S. Eliot, Rudyard Kipling, exploration, helping us to learn about ourselves as well as about the other places. Then my personal favourite, Marcel Proust. Marcel Proust wrote a book called In Search of, well, à la recherche du temps perdu, In Search of Lost Time. It used to be referred to very often as Remembrance of Times Past, but they kind of updated the translation. But anyway, Proust, who we'll say more about later in the course, he said this: the only real voyage of discovery, so we're talking about exploration and discovery, that's what this module is, what we're going to do. Discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, it isn't just about going to new places, but in having new eyes, in seeing the world and seeing the universe through the eyes of another, of 100 other people, in seeing the 100 universes that each of them sees. So understanding our own view is much better, is much clearer, we have the context, if we can also see other people's views. And that's true within geography, get the views of other geographers, but also of geography. If you as a geographer want to see something clearly, it helps if you can see what a poet sees or an artist sees or somebody else sees when they look at the same thing. What can you know of geography if geography is all you know? What's your viewpoint if you can't compare it with somebody else's viewpoint? Now, I've launched straight off, into Eliot and Proust and Kipling. We're going to do Auden in a minute as well, so it might sound like you're doing an English course, not a geography course. Sorry about that. Let's pull it back. Now, this is important. When you do your projects, I'm hoping that you'll get all excited about whatever you're doing your project on, and off you go, and you'll be doing whatever it is. Johnny Depp we had in the first year. Whatever it is, great, you can do Johnny Depp, but you've got to pull him back, get him back to the geography. So you can do Johnny Depp as long as you've got that little bit of elastic tying him back to geography and you've got that connection. So here's our little bit of elastic. We're going to go way off, beyond the boundaries, but we need, it's like the Minotaur or whatever, you go into the maze and you need a way back. You need your breadcrumb trail or something to find your way back to reality, the reality of geography. Well, here's our breadcrumb trail. Matthews and Herbert, that little book, Geography, a very short introduction. And this is what they say, and I love that book partly because they use that same T.S. Eliot extract that I've always liked. They use it in the front of their book as well. And they say, geographically, the concept of land, well, you can read that for yourselves later on. They talk about landscape in their book, and landscape is a core part of geography. And landscape, they say at the end, it subsumes the three core concepts of geography: space, place, and environment. That's what geographers worry about: space, place, and environment. So however weird and wacky it gets when we're talking about Johnny Depp later on, remember the geography, remember space, place, environment, landscape, and all these other core geographical concepts that you're by now most of you familiar with from having done geography. We're not losing sight of them, we're stretching away from them, but we're staying connected. So remember that, that's really important.